We are not nearly done fighting. We're not going to stop until he walks out of prison a free man to his family.
The fight isn't over for Sean Diddy Combs. A month after being convicted by a jury, his defense team is asking to vacate the verdict or put him back on trial.
Diddy might be walking free by tomorrow. Let that sink in. What sounded like courtroom fiction just a few days ago is now on the brink of becoming cold, hard reality. The controversial bail request that once seemed dead on arrival has gained momentum so fast, even seasoned legal veterans are stunned.
So Diddy is now not only fighting to get out, he wants the whole thing overturned. And his main argument is, I didn't have sex with them, I just directed amateur porn.
He didn't just sit there, though.
He self-pleasured during these acts. You may not hire someone to perform sex acts in front of you for your own personal pleasure.
Right.
That is still an act of prostitution.
The mogul last faced a court during his 32-day federal trial in New York, which wrapped in late June. Prosecutors accusing him of illegally orchestrating drug-fueled group sex marathons he called freak-offs.
I'm the world's most interesting man, and I throw the best parties.
At the same time, it was a scary situation because you have, 12 people who hold the fate of your life.
Diddy maintained his innocence and, in the end, was found not guilty of the more serious charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, dodging the possibility of a life sentence. He was, however, convicted on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, the max 20 years.
Diddy is going to get some time. I'm expecting something on the lower end of maybe 3 to 4 years.
But in a new 62-page motion filed Wednesday, Diddy's legal team is throwing a Hail Mary. They're arguing the convictions should not stand, one, because they go against precedent. They say, quote, Combs is the only person ever convicted under the statute where he neither had sex with the alleged prostitutes, nor profited, nor acted with the intent to commit any sexual assault or trafficking. And 2, because the mounds of scandalous evidence presented in court to prove the now rejected charges poisoned the jury.
Testimony and a verdict that ended in Sean Diddy Combs' conviction on 2 federal sex crimes charges. Could he be pardoned by the President of the United States? That is a question that came up a lot when we were doing the live streams of the Diddy trial every day on YouTube. I never really considered it as a real possibility, but I'll tell you what, now, based on current reporting, we may have to take this seriously. Oh, and in terms of relief for Diddy, we also have to get into his defense team's new memo that they filed arguing that his conviction should be thrown out, or at the very least, he should get a new trial. We're going to talk about that too. And by the way, let me tell you, we have an amazing guest who I'm going to be bringing on in a little bit, somebody who actually helped secure federal pardons for his clients, including from President Trump, and is an expert in criminal law, has been following this case from the very beginning. I'm going to bring him on in a little bit. But why do I say that we have to take pardons seriously now? Why? Well, TMZ has reported that President Donald Trump's administration has been talking to Diddy's legal team about a potential pardon, a forgiveness for a federal crime. It's enshrined in the Constitution. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1, the president shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. And according to TMZ, his decision to pardon Diddy may be determined based on if Judge Arun Subramanian grants Diddy bail, which, by the way,
This isn't just a motion anymore. It's a movement. A calculated, high-stakes legal push that could end with Diddy walking out of custody within the next 24 hours. And the system? It's wobbling under the pressure. When the request was first filed, it was met with scoffs. The charges were too serious, the verdict too fresh, the media storm too intense. No judge would touch that kind of request in this kind of environment. Or so everyone thought. But behind the scenes, Diddy's legal team was playing a different game. Quiet, strategic, focused. And now they've forced the court into a corner. It all started with a motion that didn't just ask for bail, it demanded it. Not with emotion, not with spectacle, but with facts, cold legal precedent, ironclad comparisons, and a message that couldn't be ignored. That message? Diddy has every legal right to be granted bail pending appeal. That this isn't about celebrity, it's about consistency. And if the court denies it, it sends a message louder than any gavel. Let's break down the core of this motion. Diddy's lawyers argue that his detention is unconstitutional.
Back in May. And he said when asked about a pardon for Diddy, I would certainly look at the facts. If I think somebody was mistreated, whether they like me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any impact on me. He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, that relationship busted up from what I read. I don't know, he didn't tell me that, but I'd read some little bit nasty statements in the paper all of a sudden. And Diddy had been photographed with Trump over the years. There was some sort of relationship there. President Trump even called him a good friend on a 2012 episode of his TV show The Apprentice. The problem is, some comments Diddy made about Trump in recent years as Diddy really entered the political realm. There's a video where he's speaking to radio host Charlemagne saying, if Trump gets elected, I really do believe in my heart there'll be a race war. In another video on Revolt, he says white men like Trump need to be banished. And by the way, you know who's not letting anyone forget this? Combs' rival 50 Cent. Took to social media recently, wrote, see, Trump don't like S like this, buddy. You run your mouth too much. And Donald doesn't take well to disrespect and doesn't forget who chooses to go against him. While working tirelessly to make America great again, there is no room for distraction. He would consider pardoning anyone who is being mistreated, not Puff Daddy. And let me tell you, the idea of Trump pardoning Diddy is not getting a ton of love out there. Conservative commentator Megyn Kelly posted on X, Trump should not pardon Diddy. He doesn't deserve it. He's a Trump hater. He's a woman abuser. MAGA is already upset over elites seeming to cover for each other. This would not help. GOP struggling with young female voters, most of whom will hate a Diddy pardon. And then you just had other random accounts like America First. What? He's actually considering this? Diddy is a depraved, abusive, sexual deviant who should be spending the rest of his life in prison. If Trump pardons him, he will get absolutely crushed. Who is advising him lately? It's looking like straight up sabotage at this point. There were other accounts that were not in favor of it, although there was this account. Milo posted on X, Trump has no choice but to pardon Diddy after the government, led by James Comey's daughter Maureen, simply lost interest in Diddy's guilt the moment they secured his tapes incriminating powerful Democrats. The prosecution was a shambles. The trial was a farce. Now, I want to talk about if this is really going to happen, how it would happen. Also, if it really depends on bail and sentencing, then what are we talking about? And I have somebody who not only has been following the Diddy case from the very beginning, not only is a renowned criminal defense attorney, but actually has obtained federal pardons from the president, including from Donald Trump. By the way, for his clients Kodak Black and Lil Wayne, those were maybe the most notable. I'm joined by Bradford Cohen. Bradford, thank you so much for coming here on Sidebar. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jess.
Now, before I even get into the pardon, okay, there was a bit of breaking news before we were going to come on. This is what I want to get your opinion on first. So Combs' defense team filed a memo in support of a motion for judgment of acquittal, or in the alternative, a motion for a new trial. And basically, I know you read through it, but basically the evidence, they would say, is insufficient to sustain that conviction. Their main arguments is really echoing what we've talked about a little bit when it came to the bail analysis, but that his prosecution, his conviction on these Mann Act prostitution charges is so unique. He wasn't profiting off of this business. All consenting adults were involved. The jury didn't find that there was any sex trafficking. They argued this isn't even prostitution per se, it's voyeurism, that the intent wasn't for people to travel for sex for money, but he paid them for their time. Everybody was having a good time. He makes a First Amendment argument that the freak-offs and the hotel nights were performances that were typically videotaped so they could watch them later on. It's just amateur pornography. And then finally makes the argument that he was prejudiced because of all the other evidence that came in to prove RICO or sex trafficking, and would have never came in if he was merely being prosecuted for prostitution, particularly the Intercontinental Hotel footage of him purporting to beat up Cassie Ventura Fine. And he says, at the very least, he needs a new trial. I hand it over to you. You think this is a successful argument?
Thank you. I don't know if it's going to be successful in the judgment of acquittal. I think the argument is interesting because everyone agrees he might be
that he is neither a danger to the community nor a flight risk, that there is no evidence, none, that he would skip bail or obstruct justice, that his appeal is not only active but strong, and that in other cases with similar or worse charges, bail was granted without question. They even provided a list. Case after case, high-profile defendants, serious allegations, and in nearly every one of them, bail was allowed. Some even walked out before sentencing. But Diddy? Still inside. And the reason, according to his team, has nothing to do with risk. It has everything to do with reputation. They say he's being held as a symbol, a statement, a response to media pressure, not actual legal criteria. And if that's true, the bail denial could violate his constitutional rights. That's not a theory. That's case law. And the judge knows it. That's why the court didn't toss the motion aside. That's why they didn't delay it. They acted. Fast. The judge requested an expedited response from the prosecution.
The only person in custody right now that has ever been convicted of the Mann Act. The Mann Act, and it gives a nice history of the Mann Act, and a lot of people don't understand what the Mann Act is, but the Mann Act was enacted because of a racist motivation that white women were being recruited by people of color to go across state lines and make money. So actually pimping those women across state lines and making money off of their sexual exploits. Obviously, that's not the case here. It's used so infrequently, it might have been a handful of people were actually charged with the Mann Act. No one in custody currently has ever been convicted of the Mann Act. So it's an interesting argument to say, hey, listen, this Mann Act, the original reason for it was racist. The original way that it was applied was racist. The way it's applied here is incorrect because he was not making any money from quote unquote pimping or getting these women across or men getting them across state lines. None of that was being done. This was all being done for entertainment purposes. So it's an interesting argument. I don't think this judge buys it. It might be interesting on an appeal, but I don't think the judge is going to give him a judgment of acquittal on those two counts based on the argument. Now, the more interesting argument to me, and it's their last argument for new trial, is that, listen, if you were just going to charge him with these two counts, which I originally said when I looked at all the evidence, and don't forget, I was getting calls during this trial from individuals that were telling me, hey, I have information that exonerates what they're saying against Sean Combs, essentially saying that Cassie and others were participating more than just having sex in a room. They were participating more than that. They were paying people. They were hiring people. They were sending me pictures even when Diddy wasn't around. They were asking me to come over even when Diddy wasn't around. These are what these witnesses were telling me, which is really Brady evidence. And I don't know if that was ever turned over. But the more interesting argument is that all these counts were charged. The only thing he was convicted of were the Mann Acts. And he probably wouldn't have been convicted of these Mann Acts, but for all this other stuff that came in to try and prove these counts that they could not prove and did not have a basis for bringing.
Let me just challenge you on that, because this is a jury who didn't find that there was sex trafficking. And I can't confirm that they found him guilty of the Mann Act because of the hotel video or anything else. I mean, it seems to me that they might have convicted him on that based on the travel records, the payment receipts, all about that. Not even necessarily allegations of violence. I mean, do you think that it was because of, let's say, the Intercontinental Hotel video that he was convicted of transportation to engage in prostitution? It always felt to me that they proved that charge based purely on, the documents.
Well, I always feel like during a trial, whenever you get a guilty verdict,
Emergency meetings were held. Hearings were added to the schedule. Courtroom staff began preparing for the possibility that a decision could come down before the end of the week. And now, the energy has shifted. This isn't a formality anymore. This is real. And according to multiple insiders, the court is leaning toward approval. Let's talk about the stakes. If the motion is approved, Diddy walks free pending the outcome of his appeal. That means no jail, no cell, no bars. He'll be released under strict conditions: house arrest, electronic monitoring, restricted travel, regular check-ins. But he will be free. And that's all that matters. And if it happens tomorrow, it will be one of the most dramatic post-verdict reversals in recent memory. Because it won't be based on innocence. It won't be because the charges disappeared. It will be because Diddy's team found the weak spot in the system and cracked it open. And the public? Already losing its mind. One side says this is justice. The other says it's privilege. Supporters are calling it long overdue. Critics are calling it a betrayal. But no matter where you stand, there's no denying the reality. This bail request is gaining serious momentum, and there may be nothing left to stop it. Social media is exploding. The hashtag number Diddy bail is trending globally. News outlets are updating their headlines by the hour. Reporters are camped outside the courthouse. Law enforcement agencies are coordinating logistics in case a release is ordered. Transport vans are on standby. Private security has already been spotted near holding facilities. This isn't speculation anymore. This is preparation. They're getting ready. Because if that order is signed, everything moves fast. Diddy could be out before the cameras even realize it's happened. And once he's out, the entire narrative shifts. Think about it. A man found guilty in a high-profile case, suddenly out on bail, free to speak, free to move, free to control the narrative.
The legal saga of Sean Diddy Combs entering a new chapter after his guilty verdicts. In court docs obtained by E! News, the Bad Boy Records founder filed a new motion July 30th requesting to either overturn his convictions or grant the 55-year-old a brand new trial. Less than a month after Combs was convicted for transportation to engage in prostitution, his attorneys calling the verdict unprecedented, alleging Combs never actually committed illegal acts as the law describes, saying in their motion Combs, at most, paid to engage in voyeurism as part of a swinger's lifestyle. That does not constitute prostitution under a properly limited definition of the statutory term. The media mogul's legal team demanding an acquittal, and if not, they'll request a fresh start in court without evidence tied to his not guilty verdicts surrounding charges for racketeering and sex trafficking. This comes after the trial judge denied Diddy's request to be released on bail.
On one of the counts or two of the counts out of 6 or 7, you think to yourself, is it because of these other things that they brought up, how bad he is, he's not a good guy, the video came out? Sometimes juries will split the baby, meaning, you know, there's people that want to convict, there's people that don't want to convict, and they're like, okay, let's convict him on these acts. We can all agree we can convict him on these acts. He's not a good guy. He transported these women, these men across state lines. Let's convict him on this. There's always going to be a question of that. The only way to not have a question of that, obviously, is when the jury comes out, you know, someone gives an interview and says, hey, this is why we did it, is because, you know, this tape was so bad and these other incidents were so bad that we were like, we can't just let him walk with nothing. So we convicted him on the Mann Acts. Now, we don't have a juror saying that. Do I think eventually jurors are going to start coming out? Yeah, I think so. I think some of these jurors are going to come out. They're going to want to do some interviews, not before sentencing. And I think after sentencing, I think some of them will come out and we'll discuss it, because I think that was the feeling I was getting from this jury and the reactions they had to Comey's closing, and even the reaction just in general to the 5 or the 6 U.S. attorney team. I think their reactions in general were very noticeable, and I think that this is a jury that wants to talk to people once I think he gets sentenced.
Okay, so now let's move on to the pardon discussion. So if he can't get relief from the court in getting the conviction thrown out or a new trial, can he get relief through a pardon? Before we talk about, is this a real thing, what is the process to even obtain a federal pardon? How do you even go about that?
Sure. So it's a pardon or a commutation.
It puts the prosecution in a defensive position. It puts the court under a magnifying glass. And it puts Diddy right back in the center of the spotlight. Not as a prisoner, but as a man who beat the system, at least temporarily. And the silence from his side? Still absolute. No public comments, no legal leaks, just quiet, calculated calm. The kind of calm you only have when you know the momentum is on your side. And make no mistake, his legal team is playing this perfectly. Every move has been timed, every document filed with precision. They didn't just throw together a request, they built a case. And now the court is treating it like what it is, a real, viable path to freedom. So what's next? The judge is expected to issue a ruling as early as tomorrow morning. Some say it could come in the final hours of the court day. Others say the order has already been drafted and is just waiting for final review. Either way, the window is closing, and the decision is coming. If it's denied, the case returns to its slow grind through the appeals process. Months, maybe years. But if it's approved, Diddy walks. And when he does, it won't be quiet. It won't be subtle. It will be a cultural explosion. He'll be photographed. He'll be filmed. He might not speak, but his presence alone will say everything. It will say that the system doesn't always work the way you think it will. That power, strategy, and timing can shift even the most solid outcomes. That nothing is final until it is truly final. This bail request was controversial from the start. Some called it desperate. Some called it shameless. But now it's undeniable. It's gaining speed, gaining support, gaining legitimacy. And it might be the key that unlocks the door. So stay ready. Because the next headline you see might not be about a hearing or a ruling or an argument. It might simply say this: Diddy is out. And if that happens, everything changes. The court loses control of the narrative. The media frenzy kicks into overdrive. And Diddy? He becomes something else entirely. Not just a defendant. Not just a story. A symbol. A symbol of how quickly the system can turn. Of how uncertain justice can be. And of how fragile a guilty verdict really is when legal momentum begins to shift. And right now, that momentum is building like a storm. Diddy might be walking free by tomorrow. Not maybe. Not eventually. Tomorrow.